Okay, so the first thing that we actually need, we need two serialized fields for velocity and rotation. So because of that, we're gonna add a velocity and then a rotation. I'm gonna paste this because I don't want to waste too much time, because if I'm typing, it will take a bit of time. So we're gonna try to save as much time as possible, otherwise it might become a bit boring. We are using serialized fields so that we can control the changes in the inspector later on as we play, so that we can decide how much velocity and rotation speed we need. And now we're going to call the rigid body, which is going to be our RB. And once that is done, we need to start it. So we're going to initialize it with the rigid body 2D component, which we have already added in the scene before. And now what we need is, we need to update it. Like when we press the mouse button, the object has to move up. The player controller that we are trying to get is similar to Jetpack Joyride instead of Flappy Bird. So when we hold the mouse button, the character should continue to move up, and when we release it, it has to go back down. Now we need to check if the mouse button is pressed. So for that, we are going to try to get the input dot get mouse button, and we're gonna give it a 0 to indicate which mouse button we are pressing, whether if it's the left or the right. Now if you need to know more about which mouse button or what each of these input functions, you can just search it up in the Unity docs, and I highly recommend checking the docs out so that you can get a better understanding. Once the mouse button is pressed, the object has to move up, which means it needs to get a velocity. So we're going to try to get our object and give it the property of velocity. Now to this, we are going to assign the vector 2 to give the direction, which is upward, and then multiply it with the velocity that we have given above. That is the velocity that we are assigned over here. We're going to use it. We are going to get that value over here, and then we'll assign it to the velocity of the object. We can now check this if you guys want by going to, now that the script is already added, we're going to try to test out our script to see if it's working. I mean, it's a simple script, so obviously it's gonna work. See, as you can see, now you can control, as I said before, you will be able to control the velocity, how much that you want the player to have over here. Okay, as you can see, the velocity over here. Now if I give it something like 20, what happens? See, it just went off. It went off the screen. So now if we wait for a few seconds, it comes back down. So yeah, maybe it's a bit too much. Let's reduce it by half and give it a 10. Now the rotation speed is there, but we haven't used it. Okay, 10 seems to be working. In case you're feeling that the drop is really slow, it's because of gravity, and so we can actually change that over here. If we go to the rigid body and we see the gravity scale and set it to something like 4, we'll be able to see the difference real quick. Okay, as you can see, when the gravity has been reduced, the drop is quite significant. Also, if I'm holding it, it goes up much more. Once I release my mouse button, it comes back down. Now this is exactly what we needed. Now that we see that the velocity is working fine, we need to add a bit of rotation. We're left in the velocity. Now what we need is a rotation. So we need to set the rotation. For that we're going to call something called fix update, and we're going to add transform dot. This is based on your requirement. If you need the rotation, you can add the rotation, but if you don't need it, then you don't have to. And these are like the different axes on where the rotation has to be there. Now the rotation has been applied along the Z axis. Now if we save this, that there's a bit of rotation. Now you might be wondering, what's the purpose of adding a rotation like this when it's going completely bonkers, right? Now if I reduce the rotation speed to something like 2, made a few changes and added a sprite so that you can exactly see what I meant by the rotation speed. Now as you can see, when I'm holding it, it feels as if I'm going up. The angle changes, indicating I'm going up, and when I'm releasing the mouse button, it's as if I'm going down. And now this is a simple script that I made right now, and you can hold it, you can click it, it's up to you. You can click it again and just keep going, you know. Anyway, so that's the script for the controller for the bird. Now let's try to spawn some different birds so that there will be a game over.